NDSU off to another hot start in conference action with their fourth consecutive win number 700 for the program. A balanced attack continues to keep teams on their toes. Easton Stick with over 600 yards passing, pairing with a relentless rushing attack led by FCS touchdown leader Lance Dunn and the bruising junior back Bruce Anderson. Code Green suffered another loss to an already thin linebacker squad, but the return of senior Nick DeLuca and a ball-hawking secondary are keeping expectations soaring. Easton Stick returns to where it all started 2 years ago, ready to spark another championship run against the Sycamores in Terre Haute.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Hello and welcome into the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. I am Alex Egan. She is Beth Houle, and we are excited to bring you some football action today. It is North Dakota State on the road in Terre Haute, Indiana, taking on the Indiana State Sycamores. I remembered their mascot this time. Yeah, thanks for being here last week, so you could have helped me on that. We will get going from Indiana State here in just a little bit, but we have to talk about the last time NDSU went to Indiana State, and it was a big day for a certain player in this program, and that is Easton Stick's first ever start for the Bison.
It was really an unbelievable week. They had had such a disappointing loss to South Dakota, one that no one saw coming, and then all of a sudden you find out the rumors start rolling on Sunday night. It's confirmed on Monday. Carson Wentz has a broken wrist. This is a guy who's already has the NFL conversation going, and he breaks his wrist. And then all of a sudden we have a redshirt freshman or Cole Davis. Who are they going to play? They go with Easton Stick.
It was a fun game to be at. I was at that game 2 years ago, back in October of 2015, and there was some nerves out there. There was definitely some nervous people. Easton Stick's dad was one of the most nervous, I think.
He's
Easton
still nervous every game.
He was calm, cool, collected. He did well. He was able to throw the ball well. He was able to run the ball very efficiently. I think that caught a lot of people by surprise, how good he was with his feet in this game. But it was a good way to start your career.
He just didn't look like a freshman, and that was such a sigh of relief for so many people that he was able to get out there, take those reps, take those hits, and play football and run this offense. It didn't look, obviously he wasn't going to be Carson Wentz. We still are having the conversation where it's not Carson Wentz out there, it's Easton Stick. It's a little bit different football game out there, but he was able to take control of this offense, and we've continued to see that success. And I think right now we are seeing the results of having played Easton Stick as a redshirt freshman.
We caught up with Easton earlier in the week, and this is what he had to say about going back to the place where it all began.
You never want to get your opportunity that way, but I was super excited to get out here and play and represent this program for the first time. And so, yeah, that was a fun week and a fun Saturday.
Certainly was a fun week and a fun Saturday for him. It was kind of
that because he got to travel.
I did get to go to this one, although the experience going to Terre Haute, Indiana, of all the destinations that you want to go to.
I'm so kind. I let you travel. That was so nice of me.
It was very kind of you to let me go to Terre Haute, Indiana. Some guy who is experiencing Terre Haute and all of its gloriousness right now is Ryan Gellner, who joins us from Memorial Stadium. Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Hey guys, it is sunny and hot in Terre Haute, so you can't complain about that. Not much for clouds in the skies. This one is going to be warm. It's 82 degrees right now. We'll be at 85 degrees by the time kickoff rolls around an hour from right now. But this will be windy, and that may be a story in this football game. Winds are expected to go between 20 and 25 miles an hour, and we'll see how it'll affect those quarterbacks. You already talked about Easton Sticks. Let's talk about Cade Sparks, the freshman quarterback for Indiana State. Now, he's a good one. They didn't exactly know what they had in Cade Sparks. He threw 52 touchdowns as a high school senior in the state of California, and then last year sat out as a redshirt. And he has come in and been pretty good. He throws a pretty good deep ball and loves to throw it to Bob Pugh. That is a name you should know. Bob Pugh has 5 catches over 40 yards already this year. So this is an Indiana State team. Although they are winless, guys, it is an Indiana State team that can throw the football down the field a little bit. They make you a little bit nervous because they've got some playmakers on both sides of the football. They'll move all over the place offensively. They'll do some things different defensively. So we'll see how NDSU adjusts today. But it is a great and gorgeous day for football here in Terre Haute.
Real quickly, before you take off there, Ryan, we know that Memorial Stadium, it's not the best place in terms of watching a football game. There's just the one side with bleachers. What are you seeing in terms of the crowd that's kind of filtering in? It's still an hour before kickoff, but what are you seeing out there?
3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people here. In the atmosphere, there's not a lot here at Terre Haute. It's a program that has struggled. They have struggled the last couple of years, and this year starting out 0-4 and coming up against North Dakota State. There's just not a lot of atmosphere here, and that's been a problem for NDSU in the past, is having to make their own atmosphere and their own excitement. There's not going to be much for a crowd here today, so we'll see how the Bison adjust to that, because that is a thing, and how they feed off some of the crowds. That won't be the case here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ryan. We'll be checking in with you throughout the rest of the show, and Brian, Sean, and Lee Timmerman as well. As when I was at that game a couple of years ago, it was a pretty a rough crowd, if you will.
Yeah, thank goodness Bison fans travel as well as they do.
And there was the tailgating crew from the Carolinas that made the trip out there, and there was the band. The Gold Star Marching Band made their way to Terre Haute, so there was a little bit more of an atmosphere than what you would typically expect. That stadium's big. It holds 12,000 people, but
and for a team that's 0-4 right now, it's their first home game of the season. You would think that a lot of teams would be excited to get their team in there, but they're 0-4. It makes it tough.
It's their first home game since the start of the season. They played at the end of August, so it's been over 30 days since they played. It feels like the first home game of the season. It might as well be. Let's go back to who we were talking about earlier, and that's Easton Stick and the play that he's been able to put together this year. You know, the first couple of games, we didn't really get to see him play a full game because the Bison were beating on the other team so badly. But
great problem to have.
That's a fantastic problem to have. But Easton is playing well, and I keep going back to numbers with Easton Stick, and it's easy to go and talk numbers about a quarterback, but the number that I'm most impressed with Easton is that completion percentage number. That's a number that we were talking about all offseason. You know, you want to be at that 65% mark. He was at 62%, 59%.
And you see it there, 72.
Yeah, 72% now. So that's a big, big improvement, a market improvement from where he was a few years ago. Again, he wasn't quite playing the caliber of teams that we're going to see the rest of the way here in the Valley, but that's something that's very big in terms of getting his confidence even for
certainly,
the
and
rest of the
I'm
year.
excited because I like seeing them take those shots a little bit earlier. You know, last year we would see that big push right off the bat, and then we settled into that run game. And you're seeing a little bit more of the give and take with the run and pass game, and I'm really enjoying that. And I think that's a direct correlation to Courtney Messingham and the play calling that he's doing. And I think just the willingness to mix it up a little bit. And I think that breath of fresh air has meant a lot for the fans getting to watch the game, the results that we're seeing, as well as it's benefiting the run game and the pass game, and Easton Stick with that.
Certainly, it seems like you took the words right out of R.J. Erzendowski's mouth, because that's what he said when we caught up with him earlier this week about what this offense looks like now under first-year OC Courtney Messingham.
With Coach Messingham, things are a little different offensive play calling wise and things like that, and I think that's been better for some of the receivers here to get going, and it's been a good start.
Has been a good start for the Bison, and I think the thing that we saw last week was the Bison taking shots early and often in the passing game, and if it weren't for an unfortunate drop out of Darius Shepard, we would have seen an 80-yard touchdown right out of the gate for NDSU. So they are taking some shots. They are trying to get the pass game established before that, you know, you come back with the bruising run game, because we all know NDSU can run the football.
Absolutely, absolutely. But and I think the thing that gets lost in translation is just how important having a successful passing game is to have that run game. You have to keep teams honest. You have to make them trust, just like you have to let them know that your quarterback can run. Otherwise, they're able to abuse you. And so you have to make them accountable, and being able to have that passing game and being able to have multiple weapons, because it's not just R.J. Erzendowski out there having a great time. It's also Jeff Ilias. It's also some of these other tight ends that are having breakout seasons earlier this year than I think we saw last year.
Certainly will be one thing that we are going to keep our eye on as this game unfolds today here on the KVLY KFYR Bison Football Network. We will have kickoff for you coming up at the top of the hour. Still to come on our show here, we're going to learn a little bit more about the Sycamores and talk with their play-by-play guy. That's all next right here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. Welcome back inside our Fargo studios as we are getting you set for NDSU and Indiana State football today. We want to thank you for joining us wherever you're watching us throughout the state of North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota, Montana, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us, and even those people watching on the live stream online. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah, I heard there's some like 70 some odd watch parties that are going on. So if you're
It's just remarkable.
in one of those watch parties, make sure you're telling people, hey, you can watch the pregame show beforehand, before you watch the football game. So just let everybody know.
Love
ValleyNewsLive.com. You can stream this pregame show. We're gonna let you get a little bit more acquainted with the Sycamores, and that's where Ryan Gellner was talking with the play-by-play voice of the Sycamores. Ryan?
Yeah, Alex and Beth, it is Luke Martin, the first-year play-by-play voice of the Sycamores. And Luke, it has been a tough start for your squad this year, and you go up against North Dakota State, so the schedule doesn't get much easier.
Welcome home, right? First game in 37 days, and we welcome the Bison in. We're glad to have you guys here, but you're right. It's been a difficult schedule, and the Sycamores knew that heading into the season. And even though they are 0-4, you wouldn't know it when you walk around at practice. Optimism is still high, and internally, they have a belief that regardless of who the opponent is, which today it is the #2 team in the country, that they believe they can go out and improve as a football team.
Cade Sparks has stepped into this quarterback role pretty nicely, throws a nice deep ball, can sling the rock a little bit. He's a weapon on your side.
No doubt about it. Cade, the biggest question mark with him was we didn't know what we would have before the year being a redshirt freshman. And last year, his redshirt year, totally different offense that he was learning during his redshirt year. And you're right, the Liberty game showcased what Cade could do. Not just Cade, but what that offense could do. But that's pretty much been it. You know, you had one big pass play on the second play of the game against Illinois State, which went for 45 yards. That was the good majority of his yards at the end of the day. We'll see what happens today. Let's just say those windows are still going to be extremely tight like they were last week against Illinois State.
You, like the Bison defense, have to be on your toes, I assume, as the play-by-play guys, because you will get to the line of scrimmage, shift all over the place, put guys in different spots, and then hike the football. So it's kind of a fun brand of offense to watch.
It's an extremely fun brand, and that's what I think makes it so exciting to watch, but also why you talked about the quarterback spot and why it's been difficult. It's a hard offense to learn. It's not easy. They're just not line up and, oh, we're just going to do this little route. It is a complex system, but Coach Iklinski has said they know what to do. It's just now translating it from practice to game. They're great practice players, but now it's trying to get them to do it in a game. Again, they're learning against really good competition. You're hoping, even if it may not necessarily show today because of the level of competition, you hope maybe when you start seeing a Southern Illinois, when you see Missouri State after this gauntlet of South Dakota next week on the road in the Dakota Dome, hopefully it will somewhat ease up. But as you guys know, and as the fans back in Fargo know, there's no easy week in the Missouri Valley Conference.
Luke, really appreciate it. Good luck to your squad today.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Guys, back to you.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Luke, for your time. And I think he hits the nail on the head there.
Yeah, some really good insight there. Absolutely.
Certainly talking about how there are no easy weeks in the Valley, and the Bison will certainly get to see that coming up.
Yeah, their gauntlet's just about to start. But, you know, I'm really impressed with Indiana State. I know they're not maybe necessarily the best team out. I know their record doesn't show it right now. But this is a team on the rise. And I really look at the Missouri Valley as having multiple levels of tiers. And, you know, there's the NDSU, SDSU, Northern Iowa, Illinois State a few years back, and then you've kind of got that second tier where, you know, I kind of put your Western Illinois, the Illinois State of now, South Dakota, and you know, I think we're in a transition period where some teams are making some moves, and I think Indiana State is working their way up. I think they were kind of like a third tier team here in the years past, and they're making a move. Now they're in that transition. They're in that 2009 Bison football stage, you know, where they're trying to turn things around, but they're going about it the right way. And I think that they're a program on the rise that's going to cause some fits here in the couple of years to come. And I think you do have to take them seriously. They run a tough offense. They keep you guessing, and that's good. That's what you want to see.
And I know Coach Kleiman has a ton of respect for their coaching staff. In their first year, they have, you know, you have to give them time to get their guys in there, to get their system implemented, to get the people that they want to run the type of play and have the type of culture that a coaching staff always talks about. We talk about culture all the time.
Oh my gosh, yeah, bread and butter here in Fargo.
Right. So we talk about, the Bison culture. Well, now they're trying to get a Sycamore culture going out there. And I think that is something that we will keep our eyes on here over the course of the next 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely. The Sycamores used to be that kind of random loss that you got the South Dakota of 2015. Right. When you randomly lost to the Sycamores and you went, what is wrong? How did this possibly happen? Because they took you by surprise. These are 3-0 losses. These are random blips on the radar. Yep. But they're no longer that team. I think they are a team on the rise. I don't think they're going to handle the Bison today. This isn't the year they take down NDSU with a hard-fought game, but it's up and coming, absolutely.
It certainly could be that way in the years to come. And they've got a guy on the staff that knows a thing or two about the Bison.
A couple of things about the Bison.
And we'll hear from him later on in the show. We'll catch up with Grant Olson, former NDSU great. It was now coaching linebackers there for Indiana State. We're going to step aside and
from one legend to another.
Yeah, from a Bison legend to an Indiana State legend. It is Larry the Legend.
Yes.
They've got the statue out there in Terre Haute. Yes, that's a great statue out there. We'll step aside. When we come back, we will update you on some of the injuries and break down a little bit more of Indiana State. Still to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. Welcome back inside our Fargo studios, the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. It's an old hat, really. We're talking another week of Bison football. We're talking another season-ending injury.
Okay, wasn't sure where you were going with
certainly not the thing that we want to be talking about, season-ending injuries. We'll get to that in just a minute, but first let's go back out to Memorial Stadium in Terre Haute. And Ryan Gellner standing by with our Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Injury Report. Ryan?
Yeah, Ben Noonan is on the trip for North Dakota State, and Ben, 85 degrees is the temperature at kickoff today. When it's hot and it's humid, you start thinking about cramping, and that's what I want to talk about today. Is you never want to see it, but the telltale sign: somebody goes down, grabs a calf, and all of a sudden, when one happens, you seem to have another and another. What is cramping?
Yeah, cramping's a tough one. I mean, what it is easy. It's uncontrolled contraction of the muscle, which just, as you mentioned, really hurts. Why it happens is tougher. There's a couple schools of thought, and we don't fully understand yet, but one of the schools of thought is it's related to dehydration, electrolyte imbalances, and the other school of thought is it's more of a neuromuscular mediated phenomenon. It happens because at some level the muscle's told to contract when it really shouldn't.
Are there preventive measures that you will take on a day like today? Again, 85 degrees, obviously stretching and things like that, but will you push more fluids and things like that during the game?
We always tell our athletes to make sure you're staying hydrated and make sure your electrolytes are in balance as well, not just for cramping, but for performance factors. And sometimes it's easier to get the guys to go along with it if you tell them, well, you'll run faster, you'll play better. But, you wonder if it's kind of an interplay between the two, and the dehydration and the electrolyte issues can contribute to the neuromuscular factors. And then just like you said, stretching, making sure that we're in good shape, Kramer all the way along takes care of that. So all of those things together are the best kind of preventative things you can do.
There are some old wives' tales, and let's talk about some of those. In my day, it was bananas, and I don't know if that works. And now people say pickle juice might be a way to overcome those cramps or stop them from happening altogether.
Sure, I think, those things are more of the addressing it when it's happening, so treating it, and the most effective is stretching. So that's why you'll see our trainers like Bobby run out there and start to stretch. That actually causes like a feedback mechanism to get the muscle to stop contracting. So that works very well to shut it down. Pickle juice is interesting. There's been some research on it, and it actually shows that if you take an athlete who's cramping and have them drink pickle juice, it can stop the cramping a little sooner than if it was water. It happens so fast, we think it's probably some kind of a mechanism in the mouth, some receptor picking up on the vinegar, interestingly, that stops the cramp. The salt and the electrolytes in the pickle juice certainly don't hurt either, but it happens so quick.
You didn't buy a jar of pickles for the sideline, though, did you?
I didn't, and I didn't invest in the pickle juice companies that all jumped on band, but it does seem to work.
All right, we will hopefully avoid the cramping today, but on a day like today, it's probably something that we'll see once or twice during the game. Ben, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Guys, back to you.
Gosh, I don't know. It looks pretty hot out there for Gellner, too. Maybe we should have sent some pickles with him.
Should have sent some pickles.
He'll be running up and down the
Ryan, don't
sideline.
cramp up on the sideline for us. All right, let's take a look at who's playing, who's not playing today on the Bison injury report here. And Dan Marlette, that's the guy that we were talking about earlier in the segment. Another torn ACL for this Bison football team.
I came back from vacation and I was shocked to hear this. It's
so
heartbreaking at this point. That's really the only way I can describe it. They continue to have these blows.
And I think the worst part about Marlette's injury, yes, it's a knee injury, and yes, he's done for the season, and he won't be eligible for a medical red shirt, but he is only a junior. But the tough part is it happened on a special teams play. It didn't even happen while he was playing defense.
I don't know. Is that better than practice, though?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But it's just so frustrating that there have been so many knee injuries.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating because it continues to happen in all these different ways, and we don't know. I don't think there is something that you can just point at. You can't say it's the hardness of the field, because people have heard it practice, people have been hurt in games. You can't say that it's, that they're practicing too hard because one was in the game and it was just kind of a fluke thing. These injuries come and go, and they happen, and it's just all kind of seems to be piling up. And I think you have to caution yourself from asking and pointing a finger at anything in particular. But I'm especially hurt for Dan Marlette because he was up and coming.
And he finally got his chance, too.
Yeah, he was making his impact, and Coach Kleiman talked about you have to earn this opportunity, and Marlette had done that and was getting to see the fruits of his labor, and it's just tough for that reason.
The other name that we had on the list there was Matt Plank, another middle linebacker. We aren't really sure what his injury is. He's missed the last few games, and he might be able to go today. That was one of the topics of conversation at Chris Kleiman's press conference this week was, what are you going to do at middle linebacker? Yes, Nick DeLuca is back, but beyond that, who do you have?
Well, and do you want to be pushing Nick DeLuca that hard this early?
Coming off a meniscus
injury. It's a couple of weeks ago that he had a knee surgery, and the guy already seems like Superman to me. But, oh my goodness, like how hard can you push somebody? How hard do you want to push somebody? Because I keep thinking, and I know Nick is focused on the task at hand, but I keep thinking, NFL, NFL.
Right, yes. And certainly you don't want to jeopardize his future for today, but you also need to win today to make sure that you have a future. It's a catch-22.
Chicken or the egg.
Yeah, it's catch-22. We're going to talk about who was the starting quarterback for Indiana State. And this was the guy that we saw last year. His name's Isaac Harker, 6-foot junior, redshirt junior from Lebanon, Indiana. He's not done so well. He's been actually usurped.
He was a placeholder.
He was a placeholder. He's been usurped by a cat named Cade Sparks, who's 6'4", 195, the body type that you want.
Yeah, he has the height that you want as a quarterback. And really, the one thing that they're missing, and you've heard, if you've read anything, tuned into any radio shows, anything this week, you've heard that this is the kind of quarterback that you want in your program. He's missing the experience, though. So do you go with the old guy who's got the experience but not necessarily as much talent, or is this when he gets his experience? And like we saw with Easton Stick, you've got to get the experience at some point.
You do have to get the experience. I think the frustrating part for Indiana State fans is he's completing passes at a 40% clip. It's not that great. He's turned the ball over once. He's thrown an interception. He's got 4 touchdown passes. He doesn't run. He doesn't run at all.
But you heard the play-by-play guy, Luke, earlier in the show say that this is a complex offense. And that's one of the hardest parts that Sparks has had in making the adjustment. It's not get out there and hand the ball off. It's not get out there and just throw it downfield. It's complex. They're moving a lot of pieces every single snap, and so it's tough for him.
What I hope, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here, what I hope is that the Bison fans and Bison players and everybody who follows NDSU understands how much of a luxury it is to have a quarterback and know who your quarterback is going to be. For the better part of the last decade, NDSU knows who's going to be under center. We knew that Brock Jensen was going to be playing. We knew that Carson Wentz was going to be playing, and after Carson got hurt, ironically, when they went to Indiana State, we knew it was going to be Easton Stick, and we knew that's who is going to be under center. So to not have to worry about, hey, who are we going to run out there every week, it's such a luxury to have. And I hope that that's not lost on Bison fans, not only from a fan standpoint, but from a player standpoint as well. Quarterbacks have different personalities. How do they command the huddle? Some of them handle it differently. How their cadence at the line of scrimmage. All of that stuff factors in that it can be really difficult to adjust to a new quarterback halfway through a season, halfway through a game. Just
the relationship with your center. That was something we saw when Easton took over.
Yes, and everything. So I just hope that Bison fans appreciate the fact that who is going to be under center every week. until Easton Stick graduates, and then we'll figure that out there. But it's such a luxury to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Take a deep breath. Appreciate that moment. It's so easy to get caught up in everything and all the little tiny details that you want to see perfected, but you're absolutely right. Take a moment. Take a breath. Enjoy that consistency, because they've had some good quarterbacks, and they recruit them.
Right. They get them. They get them, and we know that they're going to play. It's just appreciate it.
I know.
Just appreciate
I know.
it.
He went to Northern Colorado, guys.
So it's UNC. We've had the struggles, but there's a lot going on there.
We'll move on.
I digress.
Sorry.
I digress. We have this fun segment. It's a fun segment. So there are two guys that are really good. One of them's out this year, but there are two guys that are really good at football.
Really good at football.
Really good at football. Not so good at telling jokes. And this week's Heard This One.
Did the cameras even start?
Yeah.
We're good.
What is something that is red and really bad for your teeth? A brick.
Okay, come on, okay.
I won, bro. I won.
Let's go. Okay. All right. I'm not messing around no more. All right, you ready? How do you organize an outer space party? You plan it.
Okay, bro.
Okay. Come on.
What did the red light say to the green light? Don't look, I'm changing.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Hi, and welcome back to Indiana State University, where today North Dakota State University takes on the Sycamores. It's 4-0 NDSU against 0-4 Indiana State. Should be a good battle today as North Dakota State continues to climb in the standings in the Missouri Valley Conference. Lee Timmerman is here, Brian Shawn is here, and this is our Farmers Union Insurance Bison pregame show live from field level. And guys, it is a warm one at Indiana State.
It is a hot one today. I was not expecting this when I came out here. The wind is saving us a little bit though, but this coat's probably coming off after we're done with this segment for anybody at home is wondering.
The wind is going to be a factor, Lee.
It certainly is. I know the Bison get a little spoiled playing inside all the time, but here we are out in the elements, and I, Coach Kleiman and everyone, especially the kickers, those are the ones that will have to deal with it. Easton Stick will have to deal with it through the air a little bit, but so far the breeze feels pretty good. It would really be hot without it.
It is kind of a muggy heat, and these are the games where you'll see things like cramping and things like that pop up that you normally don't see inside the Fargo Dome. So that is something to watch for today. What else to watch for are three keys to the game as we roll into RG's keys. And the first one is no big play. Indiana State, they've got some big play power. Their quarterback is a good one. Cade Sparks can throw a deep ball. Just a young kid, but he can throw a deep ball. And he expects to start today. He likes Bob Pugh, their wide receiver, who has gone 5 times over 40 yards on one single play. So they'll throw him a deep ball, and they like to get Pugh the ball underneath a couple of times. They also like to throw deep on him. That is a key for the Bison today, to stay away from the big play. Our key number 2 for North Dakota State is to adjust to the shift. Now, the Sycamores love to shift offensively. What they'll do, they will get to the line of scrimmage, and then all of a sudden, before they snap the football, they'll move around, they'll change, and all of a sudden you were looking at one thing, all of a sudden you're looking at something else. Brian, you have to keep your eye on North Dakota State's defensive backs, their linebackers, because when the Sycamores shift, that's when the Bison have to adjust.
Yeah, North Dakota State, when we talked to Matt Entz about that, he said essentially what Indiana State's trying to do is get you to water down your defense a little bit more and not get too exotic, not get too crazy. But North Dakota State is so good and so experienced, there's not a lot of looks they haven't seen, so I wouldn't expect them to change their game plan based on that a whole lot.
Back into our keys, our third key is run for yards. North Dakota State Well, didn't have all that much luck a couple of times last week. Indiana State, on the other hand, plays pretty good run defense. They held Illinois State to just 56 yards rushing on 36 attempts last week. Works out to just 1.6 yards a carry. For the Bison to be successful, Lee, this is no secret. They need to run the football.
They certainly do, and it'll be having to run against a blitz. The six-man pressure is not just designed to try to get sacks on Easton Stick. It's designed on the run game as well, and it'll be Easton's call. We talked a little bit about that with Coach Hedberg this week. You know, how does he have to see that? He has to realize where those linebackers are, and sometimes Coach Hedberg said Easton needs to pick out maybe that guy is 10 inches further inside than he was the previous plays, and then Stick has to call the right protections of the right run read. But also, when you're bringing that many guys, you have the opportunity to pop it. It could be a simple looking power play, but the Bison think they can crease it today in the running game, and we know what Lance and Bruce can do if you give them that much room.
Let's talk a little bit about the passing game, Brian, because Easton Stick has gotten better and better, and it has been fun to watch him progress, not just last season, but into this season. It seems game after game, Easton Stick becoming a pretty good throwing quarterback.
Becoming a really good throwing quarterback, and the kid has won so many games. That's what people don't realize. His starting record as a quarterback is 24-2. The guy's getting it done. But people don't also realize how much he is climbing up the charts. I mean, he is the 5th quarterback in Bison history to throw for over 4,000 yards. This guy's having a tremendous career. He's also 4th right now in history with 38 touchdown passes thrown. So with what he has left in his junior season, moving into his senior season, he has a chance to break all those records, including the winning streak record if Bison continue to roll, that no one ever thought would be touched after what Brock Jensen did. But what Easton Stick is doing is impressive. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit.
Lee, let's talk about the atmosphere here at Indiana State. You know, the lack of atmosphere.
We have a loudspeaker going. That's the atmosphere right now.
These are games, and Bison have struggled with these games in the past. Missouri State in the past, here in the past, struggled to get up for games like this. See any of that today?
Well, I think it's just you get off to a good start, you don't make mistakes, and all the numbers we talk about with the Bison, their turnover ratio is fantastic. If you don't turn the ball over today and allow Indiana State some hope in the first half, they'll be fine, and then who cares what the atmosphere is.
Yeah, if the Bison can control things here, they will control their own destiny. Guys, the players don't look ahead, but we sure can. If North Dakota State gets a win today, man, is next week big.
Well, it really is, and as you said, getting this week is big. Back-to-back road trips in the Valley, I think, are tough. But it's, I think, important to spread out the reps today because you know you have to go back and get right back on the road next week. Now, Youngstown State does not have an easy game this week. They're in Vermilion this afternoon taking on South Dakota, who's playing good football. So you just hope those two teams beat the heck out of each other and maybe are worn down a little bit, so when NDSU heads to Stambaugh Stadium next Saturday, they're the fresher team.
Yeah, and you got to get out of here healthy if you're North Dakota State.
Well, how many times have we said that this year, and how many times have we said, oh, but that one major injury? We hope we don't have to say that today.
When we come back, we will talk to the Bison head coach, plus a former Bison who's now on the other sideline joins us as well. Stick around for that and more. North Dakota State football coming up. It is the pregame show. We are about 25 minutes away from kickoff here in Terre Haute. North Dakota State and Indiana State live from Terre Haute, Indiana. This is the Bison pregame show. It's brought to you by Farmers Union Insurance and North Dakota State and the Sycamores from Indiana State. Terre Haute, about 75 miles straight west of Indianapolis. Here is today's Herdline News, and we start with Easton Stick. You just heard Brian Shawn talk about it, but Easton Stick has had a fabulous career. His numbers continue to pile up. He is the 5th Bison player in history to throw for over 4,000 yards. The Bison Junior was 15 of 21 for 220 yards and threw 2 touchdowns last week. He now has a grand total of 4,840 yards passing for the Bison. He's 5th in all-time passing yards at North Dakota State. Hard to believe. Easton Stick, we think of a running quarterback. Well, he can sling it around as well. And North Dakota State has locked down its football schedule for next year, even though there are no FBS games on the schedule again next year. The Bison have 7 home games on the schedule for 2018, including 4 in a row at the Dome to start the season. And North Dakota State, after locking down that schedule, we'll look for a big home schedule next year. The Bison hopefully able to run the table each and every year. That is Herdline News for today, October 6th, 2017. The Bison are on the road again today, and then they're on the road next week. Now, this week's opponent is 0-4. It's a team that obviously is winless and looking for their first win. It's a place without a lot of atmosphere, but for the Herd, they need these wins. These wins are uber important, especially when we look what comes next in the schedule. I talked to head coach Chris Kleiman about just that. Winning today is big for the Bison. Chris, it's a 0-4 team on paper. It's a road game with not a lot of atmosphere for you guys, but I mean, rest assured, you need to play well in games like this.
Oh, we're going to get their best shot. There's no question. They're going to have great energy. They haven't been home in 37 days, I think. They probably should have won 2 football games. So it's a good football team that wants to try to stop us from running the football. And so I'm assuming that it's going to be a lot of run blitzes and stuff. And we have to do a great job of communicating, picking those things up, and continuing to run the football.
On the flip side of the ball, offensively, they'll do a lot of shifts and a lot of different things once they come to the line of scrimmage. Any of that concern you or with some of your guys?
Yeah, it always concerns you, all the shift trade motions. Now, hopefully there won't be a ton of noise, that we'll be able to hear a lot of the communication. Where in the Fargo Dome, you don't hear those, you hear that communication. But, you know, with Nick and with Nate up front and then Robbie and Trey, we're hoping we can get into the right calls, what new trade shifts and motions they're going to have. That's what we have to be able to dissect, and we have to do a great job, because they get you to lose your eyes and then try to get a big play behind you.
It is windy and it is wide open here on the field. Does that concern you at all, or does that change the way you guys will call the game?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it's 20, 25-mile-an-hour winds sustained here, so it's going to have a big effect on the kicking game. You know, where do we have to get to kick it against the wind? Is it a 35-yarder rather than a 45, 50-yarder? And then, you know, punting and kicking it. Can you kick it out of the end zone on kicks and stuff? And then throwing the football. I think it is a factor, maybe not in the quick game stuff, but on some of your vertical games. So we'll have to take our shots and you know, pick and choose when we're going to throw it.
Chris, thank you. Good luck.
You bet. Thanks.
And wind certainly is going to be a factor in today's game. Now, the wind has changed in the last half an hour or so, just a little bit. Prior to our pregame show, the wind was blowing almost left to right directly across the field. And now the wind is almost going north to south as it's pushing back towards this way. So when you're going one way down the stadium, you'll have wind at your back. When you're going the other way, you'll have wind in your face, and we'll see how much that affects today's game. I think it certainly will be a factor in the kicking game, and we'll see how both North Dakota State and Indiana State adjust to that. This is the KVLY KFYR Bison Network, and this is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison pregame show. We're getting set for football on a Saturday in Terre Haute.
Just under 11.5 minutes to go on the Coors Light countdown clock till we get you back out to Memorial Stadium in Terre Haute, Indiana for the Bison and Indiana State. We'll get to our Bobcat heavy lifting report, and we picked Darius Shepard this week as our player that we need to see some heavy lifting out of. We're looking for
Savage
more.
Alex Egan.
Oh, yes,
no
the
drops, please.
Okay, there's a reason for that, and I asked nicely. I said please, but that first play last week, oh my goodness, would that have been such a huge jumping off point? In the grand scheme of things, didn't matter. Everything was okay. But,
Everybody says I'm the mean one.
But please don't drop the football. It's hard enough to play quarterback. when you put it in your hands, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But Darius is doing a fine job this year. Just need a little bit more out of him. We've gotten R.J. Urzendowski involved in the passing game. We've gotten the tight ends involved in the passing game.
And this is something I harp a lot when it comes to the wide receiver game. I want as many people as possible to be able to be involved, because teams will be able to put a couple guys on R.J. Urzendowski. Now, don't get me wrong. The guy can still catch the ball with double coverage. Right. But the more you get these people involved, again, I said it earlier in the show, you keep teams honest. And they have to give the same amount of respect to everybody on the field. We've seen it time and time again with Bison football. There's that ace, there's that stud wide receiver, and then you start to see those other guys kind of come up the ranks because they need to spread it out. Let's just spread it out.
That would be nice.
Let's just get as many people involved as possible. And so whether or not that's the relationship between Easton and these other guys, obviously him and RJ have known each other forever.
Right.
That's helpful. But let's spread it out a little bit. And I'd love to see Darius Shepard, because he's been clutch for the Bison in years past. And I'm ready to see him make his resurgence here in 2017.
We'll touch more on RJ here in just a few minutes. But we promised you we were going to talk to a former Bison great, now on staff at Indiana State. So let's go back out to Memorial Stadium. And Ryan Gellner catching up with Grant Olson. Ryan?
Yeah, Beth, Alex, we have caught up with Grant Olson. Of course, you know him, the former Bison linebacker, 326 career tackles, a couple of national championships, spent some time at Wyoming, and now you're here at the Sycamores. How's coaching going for you?
It's going good. One, I'm lucky that I get to work for a great boss. I get to work with great coaches, and then I got great kids. So I love the linebackers I got to work with. It's a lot of fun, so things are going great.
Have you, now that you've been coaching, have you appreciated a little bit more, and I know you did when you were playing, but when you look at the 5 back-to-back national championships, and now you understand from the coaching side what that takes, have you appreciated what that run was even more?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely, especially when you go somewhere else and you experience some losses and you experience the building process. You know, I probably didn't have an appreciation for what Coach Bowl and all those guys did all the way back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, all those years that built up to those national championships, and all the players that came before. And now just having an appreciation for, one, the guys that I've got that are seniors and saying, hey, man, you may not experience the championships that we're trying to build at Indiana State, but 5 years from now, I'm going to be calling you up and saying thanks because you're laying the groundwork and the foundation of what we're trying to do. So that's where I think I've gained the most appreciation.
How much have you taken from your days at North Dakota State and some of the play calls and the schemes and things like that, translated them, or even some of the coaching and translated them into what you're doing now?
Well, I think what I've found is that there's good schemes in every conference and every team, and I think that everybody's got good ideas and does things well. I think what I took the most from my playing experience and the guys that I work with is how to prepare, how to build a championship man culture, how to be a professional, how to work hard. It's everything else off the field that takes no talent. That's what I've taken the most and tried to apply here in terms of my coaching.
All right, one of my favorite Grant Olson memories is not the 29 tackles, it's the rap in the locker room, right?
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
That is Grant Olson lore. Yeah, that was fun.
That's a lot of people's favorites. And the best part of that was the reaction because no one saw it coming. I kind of had that in my back pocket a little bit. And anyway, but it was a lot of fun. And it still brings back some good memories with those guys. So.
Yeah, phenomenal memories with Grant Olson, North Dakota State. You do me a favor. I didn't tell you we were going to do this, but can you do a little freestyle rap and throw it back to the studio? Beth and Alex, just come up with something quick.
Oh, shoot. You guys are really putting me on the spot here. I'm kind of blanking. I didn't know that this was going to come at all. Shoot, I'm really at a loss for it. I got to be honest with you. I'm going to pass it back to you on this one.
He's got nothing on that.
I'm sorry.
Alex and Beth, his rapping days may be over, but his coaching days aren't.
Well, I used to tell guys it was only after national championships that I used to do that. So that's the deal. Right. So next time we win one, then I'll be ready.
We'll let you off the hook. Grant, thank you so much. Guys, back to you.
Thanks. You know, Gellner, I think you should have laid a beat for him.
Yeah, give the man a beat.
Come on,
give the man a beat.
the guy out a little bit. If you aren't familiar with this, go YouTube it. It's out there. Grant Olson rapping after the national championship in the Bison locker room. It's worth a listen. It's rather entertaining.
Just remember that whatever you do when there's a camera around will end up on YouTube,
yes.
and it will live on for forever.
Yes,
let's go back to what we were talking about before, and R.J. Urzendowski, and the game that he had particularly against Missouri State, but he's been doing well all season long. What have you liked out of what you've seen out of this passing game, and specifically RJ?
Well, I just like that you're seeing that confident RJ again. I talked to him this week, and he told me straight up that he's one of the best playmakers on this team, offense or defense. I loved it. It might come off sounding a little bit cocky to some people, but I loved it. I love that confidence. I want my guys to know that they're the game changer out there. I want that confidence. I want that swagger. I think that's huge, and I love it. I want more of that. That's what I've been missing from RJ over the last few years. He's so humble, and he's so kind, and you want that in your players.
Absolutely.
But I also want to see you take a, you know, I like it. I like it. He likes the changes that have been made, and he's being vocal about it. I'm a huge fan right now.
And I think what shouldn't get lost on all of this is how much of an influence Courtney Messingham has had on the passing game and the passing offense. We knew what Tim Polasek was. We knew that he was a run-first offensive coordinator, and that is fine. That is an absolutely fine way to win football games.
They won quite a few national championships.
They did okay with Tim Polasek. But Messingham has brought in just a few more wrinkles that has allowed Easton Stick to air it out a little bit more, has allowed guys like R.J. Urzendowski, like Darius
And it's
Shepard.
opened up the game in ways that the opponents haven't seen from the Bison in a few years. So many times we stand up here and say, you know, the unknown is what these other teams are going to do. They've got a new staff member, they've got a new player, whatever it is. Courtney Messingham is that X factor for the Bison this year, and they're using it to their advantage. And that's been huge, and you've seen that in RJ's game. Coach Kleiman this week said that somebody asked if he was the most underrated player in the Missouri Valley. And he said, well, he's one of the best players in the Missouri Valley. And it's that confidence in him that is huge.
Yeah, he said he thinks he's a really difficult matchup for people.
Yeah, I think that's an understatement.
Yeah, that might be an understatement because he is sneaky fast and he's really good at running routes, and he's just a very complete wide receiver.
Well, I'm not allowed to talk about routes.
Okay, we're going there, Cam Newton. All right, let's get away from this before we get into any more trouble and we get a phone call from HR. Look at the fun they're having out there. A lot of open space in the tailgating grounds out there in Terre Haute. We're not getting an invite from the Chamber of Commerce in Terre Haute anytime soon.
No.
When we come back, we'll get our final thoughts from the guys out there at the stadium and then get you some football here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Quickly, let's get back out to Terre Haute and get the guys' final thoughts before today's game.
Thank you, guys. For me, final thoughts is the wind today here in Terre Haute. It is blowing. If you look across the field, it is blowing across the field from this sideline to that sideline where North Dakota State is. And that wind could play a factor in this football game. The Bison want to get Easton Stick to throw the football a little bit more. He's been effective, and we'll see what that wind today does with Easton Stick's ball today and how it affects that. Plus, watch for the kicking game. The kicking game today going to be affected by this wind as well. For me, it is all about the wind in Terre Haute. Brian?
All right, thanks so much, Ryan. I think my final thoughts going into this game is seeing if North Dakota State can continue to rotate other offensive linemen and play some other combinations and continue to pick up the pass protection. That's one thing Courtney Messingham said. They didn't do a great job of last week as pass protection. We'll see if the Bison do a better job of that today.
My final thought, I was looking for some obscure stat to try to indicate how well NDSU has played, and I'm going to go with kickoff returns. The Bison opponents have had 29 kickoff returns so far this year. NDSU has only 8. So that is an obscure stat. The biggest yardage that the Bison have given up are on kickoff returns, and that's a good sign.
All right, back to you guys, Beth and Alex.
All right, thank you for joining us on the pregame show. We'll see you back here at halftime. It's game time out in Terre Haute.